Hi everyone, Sue Matsuki here with another Sue's Muse for Nightlife Exchange. Today I have another dear friend, a very talented, wonderful, very funny, or shall I say punny friend. This is Ann Talman. Hi Annie, how are you?
Well, thank you.
Thank you, darling. I'm so
Thank-
glad you can join us today. Now, Anne has a show that I've seen twice, and I might be seeing it a third time because it's really spectacular. And it talks a little bit, talks all about her
Mm.
very personal relationship with the one and only Elizabeth Taylor. Tell me about your show and besides your working with her, what was it about Elizabeth that made you want to honor her in this way?
She, I played her daughter in a Broadway play in 1981 called The Little Foxes by Lillian Hellman, and it was both of our Broadway debuts. And we joined Actors Equity together. And I didn't meet her until the very first read through and first day of rehearsal. And from the moment I met her, she took me under her wing at in a motherly way. And I had just lost my mother. My mother had died that year before. And it was as if she sensed that I was motherless and needed to be mothered. Um, and we just became dear friends. We had a blast. And then we were friends for life. And we ran 18 months all over the world. And she was a wonderful human being. And she loved being a mother and a grandmother and a sister. She had an older brother, just like I do. And so I always wrote down my stories as I was experiencing them. And I even kept a journal and
Didn't
stuff.
she
And
threaten you with bodily harm to let that journal
well,
go? I'm
she,
kidding.
she once in London, I was writing in my journal, sitting cross-legged on the floor with my fountain pen, and she looked down at me and she said, "Annie, that had better not be about me." And I said, "It's not, it's about me." And she went, "All right, I trust you." So she never made me sign an NDA. I was the only one that didn't have to sign an NDA because, tell-alls were the big thing then. And so I always intended to put together a show about it. As she loved cabaret, and in 1981, I actually did a show at Paulson's, which when it was Paulson's, McGraw's, Paulson's,
Right.
and she came twice. It ran for 6 weeks, and then I did it in London too, and she came twice and wanted to lend me her jewelry. And I said, "No, I don't want to get kidnapped."
Yeah,
And
really.
And so I always wanted to do a show about it. And you were part of a class that I took and then did a presentation of 20 minutes of a solo play about, because I wanted to be sure to dig deep into the story and not just make it like shallow.
Right.
And so I worked on a solo piece that I called Who's Afraid of Elizabeth Taylor? And you came to the
I
presentation.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was always intended to just be my springboard to get some of the really important stories down. And then I started working on it with Lena Katrakis and Alex Rybeck. And then when COVID happened, I just upped my game and worked on it more.
Mhm.
And
Can I
then
ask
we,
you something? What is the thing that all of us would be surprised to find out about Elizabeth personally?
she was very generous and very loving and very funny. And she was a prankster, which I talk about in my show. She loved to play pranks backstage or on stage. And she loved giving everyone gifts. Every single opening in every city, she gave everyone a gift from Tiffany's. And she was really funny and bawdy and
Well,
BAW.
generous goes without saying because I mean, you're doing an encore of the show specifically on Equity Fights AIDS Day because that
Right.
was Elizabeth's mission. So talk a little bit about, I know you talk about it in your show, but talk a
Yeah.
little bit about her passion for this cause.
Well, and what's really important is that I was there right as it was happening because we were in London by 1982. And while we were there, people were saying, "Hey, have you heard about this new gay cancer from San Francisco?"
Yeah.
That's what that's how it first. And by 1985, she co-created AMFAR with Dr. Krim, which is the American Foundation for AIDS Research. And she was the first person to stand up for Rock Hudson when he announced that he had AIDS. She completely supported him. She and Princess Di, who I met in London because she came to the show, were the two people who were unafraid to touch people with AIDS.
I remember Elizabeth with a picture of her in bed holding Rock Hudson. And that was at the time when if someone offered you a sip from the other side of their Coca-Cola,
Yes,
you wouldn't take it no matter who it was.
yes,
I mean, we had this
yes,
paranoia. And I remember that so specifically of her being so open about, look, it's okay to touch someone you care about.
yes.
And they need
They
it now more than
need it.
ever.
They
Yeah.
need it.
Yeah.
And she had a lot of closeted gay men friends at the time who subsequently came out. Some of them got AIDS, some of them didn't, but she just became a champion for AIDS. And then in 1991, she created the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. So when World AIDS Day, it's always December 1st. And last year I did my show as a benefit at what's called the Liz, which is the Whitman Walker AIDS Foundation in Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
And this year I wanted to do it here in New York. And since Sydney Meyer has come to my show 5 times, I thought it was about time I brought the show to Sydney at
Well,
Don't Tell
it's a beautiful
Mama.
thing. Don't Tell Mamas is a great club here in New York. For those of you who don't know it, it's kind of like one of our oldest establishments. And Sydney Meyer is the mensch of our city and our business. Tell me about the show's going to be at 4 o'clock on December 1st. And we can get tickets at www.don'ttellmamanyc.com. You click it on and then you go to shows and then you'll find the date, December 1st at 4 p.m.
And I have one at 7 too, but so I have two shows, 4 and 7.
On the same day?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And Tom Viola is going to be at the 7 o'clock and say a few words because he's retiring as the executive director of Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. And but if you want to come to the 4, then people can come to your open mic
Here you
later
go.
that night.
I would rather have them come and give money to you, my darling. Here's the
Well,
thing.
all proceeds will go, all ticket sales proceeds will go to Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, and then there'll be buckets
Okay.
for cash. And they created a dedicated link for people to donate,
If they can't attend the show. Yeah.
or if you just want to give more in honor of Elizabeth and the shadow of her smile.
Now, I understand that when you went to the uh, Emmy Awards with a certain date,
Yeah.
and you didn't really feel like you had a proper dress to attend, Elizabeth came through for
Yes.
you once again.
Yes, I was at the time. Well, I moved to LA in 1992 and I did a guest spot on Seinfeld. And Michael Richards and I fell in love and were a couple for 3 years. And he took me to the Emmys twice. But the first time he took me, I called Elizabeth and I said, "Elizabeth, I'm going to the Emmys. What do I wear?" And she was so excited. She set up private viewing at Saks in Beverly Hills with champagne
Wow.
and the works. And then she said, "Do you want to borrow my jewelry?" And I was like, "No, no, I don't have enough insurance." But she loved Seinfeld and she loved watching. And then the second time we went, he won. And she was cheering at home. So
So you're bringing this show also. I just came back from Act Two in Puerto Vallarta, which you're going to love. I go
Yeah.
back in February. What are your dates there in Mexico?
I'm going to be there for her heavenly birthday, February 27th, and then March 1st and March 3rd.
Awesome. I saw your poster up there. Now, my show's before yours, but they don't have my poster up yet. Just saying, and this is a lot of guilt to the people
And
down
now
at TV.
talk to David Sabella. What can I
I
say?
know. I will. I will
Well, you
talk to
see,
him.
Elizabeth and Richard Burton owned a house in Puerto
Did they
Vallarta.
really? Oh my.
Yes, and it was a very special place that's now a very gorgeous hotel. And it was when they weren't married yet. And so it was two houses that they combined with a breezeway so that they each had their own house but could visit each other. And
Maybe
so
we
it's
all need that as we get like long in tooth with our marriages, right?
and every room is dedicated to Elizabeth and Richard and a movie or something. So they loved Puerto Vallarta.
Well, hopefully all the people who love them will come to see your show. I wanted to say, let's talk a little bit about collaboration. You work with two of the best. I mean, I have high praises always for our girl Lena, but tell me how this project seemed appropriate for Alex and what Alex brought to the table, because I'm always fascinated about how things work behind the scenes.
Well, I've known Alex since 1980 when he used to play Broadway auditions for me for like Merrily We Roll Along and just all the Broadway shows that I was up for in the 80s. So I've always known Alex and David Sabella. I asked David who should I work with on my show because I told David and you about it like 2 years before I even really
Mhm.
began. And he said, Alex Rybeck. So I just reached out to him. And the thing about Alex that is so wonderful, I have found, is that he just really knows my voice and he knows how to place a song where I'm always comfortable.
Mhm.
And then he's just brilliant arranger, pianist. And I say the same thing about Gregory Toroyan, who I'm working on a show with now. But Alex, uh, this show lent itself more to Broadway show tunes and the Great American Songbook, and he was just perfect
Oh,
in every
awesome.
way.
And Lena, working with Lena is a trip, isn't it? She keeps
Yeah,
she keeps us from our bad self, I like to say.
and I've known Lena since the 80s,
Mhm.
or I knew of her, uh, but I met her at the O'Neill Cabaret Symposium in 1999, but then when I devoted myself to all things cabaret, I just reached out to her and I said, "Can I be a sub or an alternate in your classes?" And that's how that
Yeah, I
started.
do that too. I go whenever I can because it's always not only is it fun to connect with her group of singers because they're all stellar, but it's also fun to just kind of be together and get her feedback on stuff. Um, I don't want you to give away what your next project is because there's always someone out there who will steal your idea.
Yeah.
But is it more, is it theatrical? Is it jazzy? Is it standard? Is it comedy? What are you leaning towards?
It's more, it's a certain composer and it's mostly singing with just a few introductions here and there or a few stories that relate a certain song to me personally.
Nice.
But it'll be very different from The Shadow of Her Smile, which is like a musical memoir.
Mhm. It's
This is,
actually kind of like a little mini Broadway show to me. You know, it's a very off-Broadway kind of thing and could work as a 90-minute or even a 2-hour show if you expanded it. It's really awesome. So I just wanted you out there in Nightlife Exchange Land to get to know my friend Annie a little bit. What are you pointing to behind you?
posters of Elizabeth's eyes are
I
right
know.
there from Little Foxes. And those renderings there, Stephen Mosier gave me those. They were the costume renderings for Elizabeth and Maureen Stapleton's costumes.
How awesome. What a wonderful thing to have.
Yeah,
Wow.
Florence Klotz did the
Well, she's
costume.
literally looking over your shoulder and watching
Yeah.
over you, I'm sure, right? I'm so kind of envious that you had that kind of relationship with someone that we all kind of knew was so generous and kind and funny and smart and everything you described her as, I suspected she was, but to hear it reinforced that it was all true just makes me so happy, and happy for you that you had that experience with her.
And it was the other aspect of it that is almost spooky, eerie, is that from the time I was 4, and my mother was the first to say it, people would say how much I resembled Elizabeth from National Velvet.
Mhm.
And whenever it came on TV, all through grade school, middle school, high school, college, and beyond, every time it came on TV, the next day, strangers would walk up to me and say, "Oh my God, you look like Elizabeth Taylor from National Velvet." And so the day I met her, she gave me, this is in the show, but she gave me a huge hug, kissed my cheek, and whispered in my ear, "Oh my God, I feel like I'm looking at myself from National Velvet."
Like you never heard that before.
And I said, "Well, thank you. I never heard that before." That's a little bit.
Awesome.
But anyway, and I mean, it was like destiny. It was,
It feels like it. I
yeah.
think she'd be so, so proud and so happy that her memory lives on through you, my friend. Everyone, I'm going to have all the information and links to tickets for these shows, these 2 shows on December 1st at 4 and 7. And I will put up a little clip of Annie singing so you can hear her beautiful voice. Please attend. It's for a very good cause. People think that this is gone and out of our lives, and it truly is not. So it's our job to keep playing it forward as Elizabeth would have expected us to. Ann Talman, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us today on Nightlife Exchange.
Thank you for having me.
Totally our pleasure. We'll see you next time, everyone. Have a great day.